Games from the Cellar, the board gaming podcast. We have 3 copies of this in the collection.
We have 3 copies of this game, and people are trying to find it, so we're just being greedy.
I was gonna say, it sounds like we're sitting. It
self-absorbed,
sounds like you guys are sitting on about $600 worth of board game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that much, but I don't think anyone would want mine. What is this? What's this mark on the front?
So this is the Adventurers, the Temple of Chac.
Is that how that's pronounced?
You can pronounce it however you like. That's how I have oft pronounced it.
Chac looks right.
Yeah. And this is an AEG game from just shy of 20 years ago.
We're Indiana Jones XPs.
Yes.
Raiding the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
There's a boulder, there's lava, there's
water,
walls closing in.
Waterfalls.
We are committing
treasure.
crimes,
There
and the
is
idea is
treasure,
to get
too.
out before you get trapped in the temple.
Yes,
and there's lava, and there's water,
by
and there's
setting
rolling
foot in this
boulders,
temple, we've doomed it to destruction.
and we're looting it.
I mean, that's
So-
what ancient Mayans are known for, right? Booby trapping everything.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the goal of the game is to haul as much treasure with you as you can, but you have to make it out of the temple before the boulder reaches the exit and
Sealing you
seals
in.
it off.
seals you in. At which point there is no escape. In theory,
Because you get sealed in, the entrance gets sealed off by the walls that close, that our characters are standing in the middle of right now at the beginning of the game. And the far end gets sealed off by the boulder that rolls down this entire track and closes off at that end. And we have to run down that same track in front of the boulder. Meanwhile, we have to loot various treasures from this temple on our way to the far end.
yes. So as you play the game, you have to decide between moving quickly or stopping to pick up the treasure. And once you've picked up the treasure, it slows you down. And you can take risks, but taking those risks, you could get squashed by a boulder, you could fall into the lava, you could get swept away by the river.
It's about as thematic a push your luck game as there is.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
it plays pretty quickly, and we're fairly familiar with this one, I think.
And it's very pretty, and it's got 1,000,000 cards, and it's got 5 dice, and it has this odd sort of motion where you roll 5 dice to determine how far you go, but you don't total them up. What you do is, depending on the amount of loot you are currently carrying, you get to move 1 space for every die that exceeds that number. So when you have nothing in your hands, a roll of 2 or higher on each of those 5 dice means you're allowed to move, which typically means you're going to move 4 or 5 spaces. But as you start picking stuff up, you start only being able to move on rolls of 3 or higher, or 4 or higher, or 5 or higher, until you're just sort of carting along, 50 pounds of garbage while this rock is coming up behind you. And the rock always moves on a 3 or higher, so it gets up to a good dose of speed.
It goes faster. The longer in the game, the faster the rock goes.
The first round, you roll 1 die. The second round, you roll 2.
and so on, yeah.
And I believe John mentioned a house rule that we were going to
We were
debating.
yes.
Yeah, I was arguing that if it rolls over somebody, it slows it down by 1.
I was saying the opposite. If it rolls over somebody, it gets lubricated. It should go faster.
So let's split the difference and say there's no difference.
That works for me.
I mean,
Okay, so the house
So
rule
first
is
off-
nothing changes.
first off, we have to determine how big is the boulder. Because the mass is going to determine whether your body is a speed bump or an oil slick.
We can see it, actually. And there's these lovely figures. If we assume they're roughly to scale,
Right, and
although we
all of our
don't see a
characters are the
slope,
lightweights.
there's no slope indication here, but there has to be. Otherwise, the boulder wouldn't be moving, right? So this whole thing has to be downhill.
I mean, let's just assume that. We don't have to really assume,
Well, if it's a Mayan temple, presumably we're entering at the top, right?
mm-hmm.
So we're entering at the top and then exiting at the bottom, and the boulder's rolling all the way down.
All right, I'm
on
bored
the
with this
inside.
already. All right.
You're the one who brought it up, man. I don't know what to tell
What are you all
you.
talking about? So we go through the walls that come and collapse on top of us, and then you can try to go through the lava field, which is quicker, and there are good rewards in the lava field if you're willing to do it. Or you could grab the other stuff that's over by the side, but that's tougher to do because you have to roll dice over and over again until you get a 1, 2, or 3 on all of them.
No, you got to be more descriptive.
No, you don't have to be more descriptive because then you
I
turn the corner,
perfectly
you either
understood.
jump into the water, and there's treasures at the bottom of the water, or you make a run across and you break the bridge. You don't break it completely until you're off of it, but you want to break it enough that the next guy jumping on falls in the bridge and plummets down to the bottom of the waterfall, at which point you die before you even get to the end of the game. There's like 5 ways to die in this game before the game even ends, and all of them can quite simply be settled down to your stupidity.
It's a press your luck game, and it's fast.
I will say, I don't remember most people making it out of this one. I think most people die.
Well, it depends on what your strategy is, because you can grab yourself a couple of good treasures and then beeline.
Bolt, yeah.
But you're allowing other people to slow down and take their time. So it's really just, it's the push your luck part of it.
Right.
I will note, the one thing that I think is hilarious about the rule set here is at the beginning of the game, you're dealt 2 characters. You flip one of the cards over, and that's your little cheat sheet as to how many spaces you get to move, and based on how much loot you have. On the other side is the character portrait, your character portrait. The game rules state if you die in the first area, that is the collapsing walls area, you remove that figure, you flip both of your cards over so your other portrait is available, and then that guy goes in after everyone else.
Well, it's like with the lava clears, all of a sudden he slides a rope down and you slide down to the
As the
lava
boulder
rope.
goes past the lava field, it reveals 2 tiles that you can spawn in on.
But you're right. The rolling boulder gets to a certain point, and then at that point you get dropped down onto those spots. But I'm going to be honest with you. Those are all sissy rules. I mean, you need to survive to the end of this, and this is a game that is short enough that, if you get squished, that's on you.
You root for the boulder at that point.
Yeah, if we're going to have a house rule, I say it's 1 character per person.
Yeah, I agree. Don't get squished. That should be at the top of the rule book. Don't get squished.
Don't get squished. Stay in front of the boulder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your number 1 strategy, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so a couple of things that we didn't cover. So we covered all the ways you can die, all the ways that you can pick up treasure. So there are within the collapsing wall room and on the lava field, you can pick up treasure on the spots that you stand on by simply using one of your actions on that space. Additionally, there are 2 sets of locked
Grates.
vaults.
Yeah.
One next to the lava, and then one that is further down past the river.
That is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, so that one is worth the most points. It's worth
6 points.
We usually set that face up.
but you have to roll. You have to roll a large straight. You have to roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But it's like Yahtzee, right? Where you can lock in 3 of your dice and roll the
If
other
you get
2.
5 movement
Each
points.
action, you can re-roll the die. So if it takes you 2 moves to get there, and you have 4 total actions, you can re-roll twice.
Right.
And then next turn, if you're ahead of the boulder, you can use all 4 or all 5 of your movement,
Right.
to try to re-roll that. So you could technically re-roll it up to 4 times.
If you're at that point of the game and haven't found any other treasure to carry with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah, because usually you need more than 9 points to win.
Yeah, and you've also gone pretty far out of your way to avoid, that's the longest path out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You haven't jumped in the river. You have not
Gone over the
bridge. You're
skipping 2 shortcuts to get out.
You're really going pretty far out of your way to try and pick up that dial.
But-
And you do got to keep in mind, there is always the chance that if you make it out with 5 points,
You could
and
be the only
you
one
might
out.
be the only one that gets
everyone else dies tragically, you win.
That's
and
the
tragically
game.
is a matter of perspective.
And that's the game.
And frankly, I think from a genre understanding, we don't know if this is the beginning of the movie or the end of the movie. So, this could be the scene where everybody bursts out of the temple, arms overflowing with treasure, and finds the bad guy standing there with rifles pointed at you and you're forced to surrender. Or it could be the climax of the movie.
I hate Nazis.
Yeah. The Nazis could be showing up, or they could be dead
Nothing
outside.
I hate
Who knows?
more
I think it could be the
Illinois
old
Nazi.
lost tribe
Wrong movie,
blowing
but good.
blow darts at you and
Yeah.
chasing you through the woods.
Yeah, it could be that
Telling
too.
your
That'd probably
pilot
be
to get the plane started.
That'd probably be the start of the movie.
All right, so the details. AEG, it was 2009?
Oh
So
my
this
gosh,
is going
let's
back
just
15
game.
years.
At the height of me shilling AEG games at Gen Con.
And it's just a larger-than-life game. Let's do this.
The boulder. Yeah, that sucked.
And Boulder's got a kill count, man. What was it? 2
4.
this last game?
3.
Was it
3 total.
3? And then last time someone ended up in the lava.
Well, no, because it didn't technically kill me. I drowned in the river
How did John die the first time?
Lava.
So it only got 2 people. It only ran 2 people over.
Yeah. It just ran them both over on the same turn.
If it causes panic to where you like run into lava or you jump down the waterfall, should that not still count as a kill for the boulder?
I feel like all of the kills kind of belong to the boulder, because if it weren't for the boulder, we could just
take our time
whenever we want.
Stop for lunch.
Yeah, it seals up the exit.
I mean, the game definitely has a timer to it.
Yeah.
And we played it twice, and each game probably took, 20 minutes?
Oh, yeah, it
minutes?
goes quick.
So
That's when I did the description, I was kind of like doing it really fast because that's sort of the nature of the game. Everything's kind of in a hurry.
Yeah, and it's one of those things you kind of figure out quickly, like how everything works, the mechanics behind it.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, the boulder isn't moving too bad, so I can pause here and do something, and on the next turn, the boulder moves 5, and you're like, oh, crap. Now I'm
you
behind.
two were kind of playing with fire there on purpose, where you looked at it and you went, well, I'm the boulder can move up to 5
Come on, it's
spaces.
not gonna
I'm
move
5
5.
spaces
I'm 4
away.
away.
Hey, look,
5
no
away.
guts,
4
no
away.
glory.
No,
Yeah,
I was going to
you
say,
said that-
now we're getting a lecture from the guy who won both times.
You said that 3 times last game.
Yeah,
You were like, what are the odds it moves 5? And, well eventually
I
it did.
I never did say that.
No, but you were thinking it.
I was like, look, all right,
It's
I can do
inconceivable.
one chance. Like, I was fairly certain that I could make it across the lava if I had to. So I could cut that corner and get out ahead of it. But it rolled 5, and it smushed me and John at the same time.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah, and it needed to roll all 5 in order
quite
to
devastating.
get me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had picked up one of those 4s, I was just going to book it out of town. I was not going to stop again.
Yeah, I was going to do the Chris strategy of dredging the river because I have the fish icon. So I could have gotten
You're a
out.
strong swimmer,
You
Steven.
would have been okay.
But, in both games, never got the opportunity to. So
Well,
In spite of the trench coat,
the
you're
river-
a strong swimmer. Maybe
Mhm.
she takes it off before she jumps in.
The other strong swimmer
Maybe
is
it's a
also wearing
flotation
a big
device.
coat. I mean, look at this guy. He's got
I know,
a big
Puccio.
coat, huge coat, and a massive
Maybe
backpack.
he throws his coat off as well.
I mean, it could be that
Look at his
the
legs. They're so
collar, the furry collar, like
it's
actually
a flotation device.
is a
It's like a
flotation.
swimmy. Yeah.
Okay, I see
It's got the swimmer's foam in it so that you bob above the water.
I don't think the river is a winning strategy. I think it's more lava.
In the past, we always did the river. The river would be pulled dry, so to speak, every single time. Everybody would jump in the river and get the treasure.
Yeah, I do recall a game where I was the last one in the river and was only able to pull 2 treasures.
Yeah.
So
That was when got upset going, what do you mean they ran out of treasure?
I mean, I think both of these games, I think Chris was the only one to get in the water.
Yeah.
yeah, my strategy is usually to pull as many treasures out of the collapsing wall room. You got, I think you have like 1 or 2 5s in the last 2 rows.
I think it has a distribution on the back here, I think.
That's cheating.
Well,
Yeah.
either way, you can get a couple of 5s from the collapsing wall room.
Right.
And my
The
goal
only
is
problem
Yeah.
is you're carrying them early,
There's-
so they're going to slow you down
There's
for the
one
entire
value
stretch.
5 card in each deck, and then one
That guy.
surprise card.
Yes, there's a die 6
Die
card
6
where you
card.
roll a die at
Yeah,
the end of the game.
D6 and a 5 are the most valuable,
Okay.
arguably.
so I try to leave the collapsing room wall with 2 4s and a 5. If I can do it, great. If not,
Right. The problem with that is,
You don't know what the other people have already pulled.
yeah, and you're going to be tempted to carry out. Well, I've got 4 4s.
oh no, I never carry out more than 3. I always
okay,
I
but-
pick the best 3 of what I have, and then I get out, and then
Yeah.
I usually skip the lava room and go straight to the lock boxes, or
I think you guys are playing for all the wrong reasons. I mean, you're trying to optimize and strategize a game that is fundamentally about being larger than life. This may be the single most larger than life game that has ever been printed.
John, I got crushed by the boulder. No guts, no glory. Don't talk to me about
That's true.
I
You did get
over
squished.
optimizing.
I
did get
I did kind of do the same thing each time, where I looked at every glyph. I looked at every tile in the
collapsing
the
wall.
collapsing wall room so that I could chart a safe path through the lava. And this time I just got really lucky with my treasure pulls from the lava room and was able to book it.
See, and I don't do the lava, not because it's strategic or not. It's I don't want
Don't
to
have
fry.
a good memory.
Well, that doesn't help it either. But although this last time I got them both right, so I was doing okay on that. But watching your character fry to death just is not a lot of fun. I mean, drowning sucks, but I can't help but think that drowning is better than falling into lava. I mean,
I'm sure both of them suck. I'm sure all of it sucks.
That's true.
Getting crushed by a boulder is also no.
Yeah, I'm
getting
sure
squished by the
imagining your
walls isn't
character
particularly
die
good
would
either.
be awful.
Yeah. Well,
But you know what? It's a game.
Has
As
anyone
luck
ever
would have
died
it.
in the collapsing wall chamber?
No, but and so
I feel
suppose
like
somebody could, but here's the question. I mean, because it could just be front loaded.
the answer is actually yes. I know that I have died in there because.
But if you don't get out of there before the boulder goes by,
Mhm.
you have to be like trailing that boulder and hoping and praying that you can get across that bridge at the exact moment that boulder's turning that corner.
So technically, it could be done in 3 turns,
Wow.
At which point, anyone still there is stuck inside.
and I'm pretty sure the walls collapse after 4 turns or 5 turns.
So in theory, it could slam shut
On the second
turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 15 cards that help keep that from happening.
maybe
Yeah.
next time we just take out 3 blanks.
Right, you could take out a couple of blanks, and that would kind of there's
'Cause
ways
there's-
you could certainly
to
dial it
be
up
fair,
as if
we-
it's not scary enough.
We did speed the boulder up this turn.
Yes, we
We
did.
This
did,
game.
yeah.
But I mean,
We
one die.
One die.
started with
Well-
2 instead of starting with 1.
Right,
so we
but that's
actually,
not
we
just
actually
one
sped it up
die.
4
That's the collapsing walls didn't feel like much of a threat, right? I mean, even in the first game when we didn't speed up the
what Chris
boulder.
was saying. Take a couple of those blank cards out, and maybe there'll
Yeah.
be a little more there.
Yeah, if the walls are ratcheted and shut at the end of turn 1, you're going to go, maybe I don't just sit here and
Right.
pick through the treasure.
Well,
Right,
gu-
exactly.
Guess we're not going the lava route.
Yeah. Yeah, or and the other way you could change it is you could take out the top treasure in each of these decks so that they're not quite as lucrative. But again, it's you got to decide.
The other thing
I'm not
is,
sure this is a game you need to worry that much about
no, and
optimizing.
it's interesting because you're right. It is a game where I don't know that you can play it a bunch of times in a row, right? Just because you're gonna start recognizing specifically the lava tiles, right?
Yeah. Like
Where-
I knew the one that I jumped on was safe because I recognized the fact that it was the one tile I looked at last game, and it wasn't one of the ones that was a bad tile.
So you knew. And I wasn't keeping them straight in my head, but I was a little better at it the second time, and the third time, it's just, okay, I recognize it now. And I feel like part of the fun for me, the reason I went through the lava field is well, I hope I'm right. I looked at all the tiles. I hope I remember which ones are trapped.
And part of it also is the first time you play, and I say the first time you play, the first time you play every year. If you play this once a year, it would you would have the same effect. When you look at the lava tiles to see which ones are the trapped ones, it's these kind of intricate patterns that when you're looking at them, you don't really know what to focus on.
Yeah, they're very similar.
And
sometimes.
some of them are very similar.
Yeah.
And
This one's a circle with a square inside of it, and this one's a square with a circle with a square inside of it.
Yeah.
Which tile was the one that was trapped? You had 5 seconds to look at it. I think they're both trapped.
You could add another 30 tiles and make it a little more complicated.
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is once you start looking at the tiles, you kind of recognize what to look for when you're looking to see which ones are trapped.
Yeah, that's fair. But to be fair, I mean, you took the time to do that when you could have been taking treasure. You could have been bolting to get onto the other stuff. So I mean,
Because
you pay me now,
like
pay
Sam
me
was
later.
saying, there's the pattern that's square, circle, square, inlaid with each other, and then the other one is circle, square, circle. The first time you look at that, you're like, okay, cool, circle, square, circle. I got that in my head. And then the tiles flip over and they're sitting there next to each other well, wait a minute. Which one is it?
For me, this run, there's one tile, it's got a sun with flags coming off of it, basically.
Right, you start making up a story that matches
And
the tile.
when I looked at it to see which one was trapped, my brain just went, okay, sun with flags coming off of it.
Yeah.
And then we revealed the lava room, and I was looking at it, I was like, okay, there's 2 tiles that look like that. Which one's trapped?
Yeah.
I got it right, but if I hadn't, I would have just
that's the
fallen
pizza
into lava.
That's the pizza piece that's been the pizza that's been cut into 4 pieces, and
And that's the part of the game that's human. That's player skill, right? That's not roll the dice or risk evaluation or whatever. That's just how well did you memorize
and
it?
how many other games have we bumped into that kind of stuff? And the answer is kind of 0. It's these are kind of interesting ideas that you're
I
not
think
stumbling into in other games.
I mean, a lot of games have elements of player skill in them, but it's more about tactics, right? How well can you put together a combination of cards, and you have perfect information and all of that. But here it's, you looked at the tile that was trapped for 5 seconds. Can you remember what it looks like?
Right. And can you remember the 4 you looked at and pick them out?
And
so they start
there are games
similar.
like that, but I think there's some traditionalists who would not be pleased with that.
No, I'm just trying to figure out. I don't think I've ever played a game where they did something like that, where you had a huge layout and you have to pick out the tile that you peeked at.
Well, no, not that, but the memory part of it. Like any perfect information game with semi-hidden information, such as the Castile and El Grande.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same principle.
Okay, that's fair.
Are you paying attention enough to know how many each of us are putting into it? Or do you do like me, try not to think about it because you're going to get lost and you just
me, just count how many Chris puts in because he always puts in
Chris
more than
is
everybody
usually
else.
the only one that goes. So yeah, if you keep an eye on Chris, then usually you're okay.
pretty much set.
But yeah.
So my point being,
but yeah, this memory game that you're playing,
and the way the dice roll, it's not so that part's memory, all right, and the bridge, you're pushing your luck on breaking the boards every time you step on it, and if you want to, you could jump up and down on that one space and break even more, so somebody can't come along behind you. Each, and then the other ones are like roll Yahtzee dice. So there's all these kind of bits and pieces all put on one board and all play in about 30 minutes, even with 4 of us going. And I mean, there's just a whole lot of stuff going on here, and this is one of the examples I always use, that when it comes right down to it, the French make the best Ameritrash out there.
That's right.
It's Franco-trash. It is the best games. Russian Crush is there, where you get to race cars that can drop mines on each other or shoot at each other with machine guns. Formula Day comes out of France. Pitch Car comes out of France. They're just great games that are these larger-than-life plays.
Yeah, like
I don't care for racing games.
Even some of the Fedudi games, like they seem like Euros, but they have a lot of Ameritrashy aspects to them. Like what's the Bruno one that we played in Paul's honor? Isla Dorada.
Isla Dorada. Yeah.
So you don't even like
Shadows
Russian
over
Crush?
Camelot.
What's Russian Crush?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one where you lay mines and you can shoot. And
he might be too young
Oil
for Russian
slicks.
Crush.
I don't remember
Oil slicks.
Russian Crush.
I mean,
we
have to get Russian Crush out now.
We'll have
You
to
have
play
a partner.
Russian Crush.
I don't
It
remember
is a race
Russian
game,
Crush.
but you get to fight.
That's what I took away
We're
from it.
making the point that the French do Ameritrash
Better than anybody else.
except for America.
I don't think that's what John said.
Yeah, I think John is.
I think this is awfully trashy right here.
Yeah,
There's
this is a great
whole lot
game.
of crazy stuff on this map. So
Did you ever play the follow-up to this, the Pyramid of Horrors?
I have never played the Pyramid of Horrors.
Yeah, I didn't. At this point, they had either sold the license to Fantasy Flight or whatever happened. Fantasy Flight was the ones putting this out when the Temple of Horrors or the Pyramid of Horrors came out, and I just never got around to it because at that time I was still a shill for AEG, and that's pretty much all.
And it never got the reputation that this one did. This game was like super hot for like a couple of weeks. I mean, everybody talked about this game, and it didn't last long, but it's just a crazy enough game, and there's so many different pieces, and it is so thematic. I mean, it reminds you of 2 or 3 different movies that you've seen, that it just sort of, it kind of came to life for just a little while, and it was like a one-hit wonder. I mean, it screamed up the top of the charts, and then off it went.
Yeah, I mean, I do recall this being one of the hottest games that AEG put out at Gen Con.
Yeah,
this was one of the few games where there was a line in the morning to get this game.
To line up to get the game.
And I don't recall many other games.
Yeah, and it was from that era.
At least in my time, at my time with AEG, there may have been some after, like automobiles or something, but this is the one that I remember from my time.
And I think they could still sell this now. I'd just be curious to know. It's got a lot of bits and pieces.
Is it not still in print?
No.
It's very out of print.
I think this got one good size printing, and that was it.
I got 2. So AEG printed it once, and then Fantasy Flight printed it.
Oh, really? I don't know which version I have.
You have the AEG version.
How do you know that?
Because I'm pretty sure I gave that version to you.
I think I bought this.
I feel like that was one I brought home to you, because they used to pay us in games, and I would
maybe
buy
you did.
I would get stacks of games and bring them home and pass them out to everybody.
Maybe you did that.
But yeah, so I mean, could this game stand up in the modern time? I mean, I guess it depends, because here you've got what I consider to be a good family weight game. Like,
Absolutely.
this would be a very easy game to play with your family. Just,
Right, because all you need is a master of ceremonies. I mean, anybody can talk you through all the pieces. And like I said, you don't need to talk about how the water works until somebody starts getting close to the water, and then you can start. So you can actually introduce just the first couple of things that are going on the map, and if you got one person that knows the rules, then at that point they can talk through everybody. So you can play this with your kids.
But would you take this to like EuroQuest down in Annapolis? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think
it won't fit in.
Yeah, this would be a great Target game. Like, if they could do this mass market, if they could figure out how to work the production to a price point where it could hit mass market
shelves. So how much does
shelves.
Ticket to Ride go for at Target?
I think it's $45.
Okay, so they could probably sell this for $80 if they really set their mind to it. You wouldn't have the painted people anymore.
Now, games like Everdell are $80.
I couldn't pick Everdell out of a lineup.
Everdell is like
Is it a lot of pieces?
Yeah.
It's
got this like cardboard tree that you build. So this could sell for $80. Wingspan sells for like $60 at Target. So
okay.
I mean, with a game like this, you're targeting like that $45 to $50 range.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't want to pay $80 for it, but 40, 45, I'd be pleased.
Well, I don't think you're going to print this as cheap as Ticket to Ride.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to figure out how to reproduce this in a way to where you could get. And the only reason Ticket to Ride is $45 is because they're printing it at scale.
Right.
So you got to figure out.
They can print 100,000 copies.
You got to figure out a way to make this $45, and you could put it on Target shelves, and it would go
straight out the door.
I mean, you could cut out the walls and replace the plastic walls and the plastic bridge and the plastic boulder with something.
No, you can't replace the plastic boulder.
You're right. The plastic boulder probably needs to stick. But
or you could just like have the players, whoever buys the game has to go out to the creek in the backyard and get an actual rock. That's how you cut costs there.
But yeah, the painted minis are, I think, a good selling point because these aren't too bad.
But they were an add-on.
Yeah, they were an add-on.
They did not come with the painted minis.
They cost like $25 just for the minis themselves, and I have a feeling, that was back when painted minis were cheap.
Yeah, because they're hand painted.
You can't get them.
They are, and it's. I once heard Christian Peterson talking about it. It says, "Don't think for a minute that those minis are painted by a machine. They are painted by hand, every last one of them." So back when Chinese labor was far less expensive, they could do things like this, and just the market is not there for that anymore.
But yeah, so
something about human rights and a fair wage.
Yeah, fair wages are. Yeah. However you want to go on that, you can go on that. So I mean, we've pretty much come to the conclusion that somebody, if they could get it produced at the right range,
could sell this game.
Could make a lot of money at Target.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that leads us into the question, right? Well, what is this game actually going to be rated? Sam, you won. What do you give for a rating on this one?
I won twice.
You did win twice.
I don't know. I mean, it's a fun game. I enjoy playing it. Right? It's not a game that I would want to play every week or probably even every month. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's fun to break out.
This is a good once a year,
yeah,
or twice at the same time, once a year type of game.
Yeah, like.
For gamers.
Yes. Because, you play it a couple times, you're going to start optimizing it. That's just kind of how that works. You're going to see patterns, you're going to think about it, you go, well, maybe this is the most efficient way to do it. And at that point, I think you're going to optimize the fun out of this pretty quickly.
And it kind of becomes a different experience at that point, too.
It does. And that's maybe not a bad experience, but it's loses some of the lighthearted fun, I think. And that's where the adventure shines, is when, it's so thematic and you can almost hear the music in the background as you're playing it and you're running from the boulder and are you going to make it? And you want to have to when you start thinking about, is it worth me running into the water? Is that ever more effective than me trying for the bridge? And what are the odds of me stopping to grab the big treasure at the end of the path? And that's when it's not going to be fun. Play a different game,
Yeah.
right? But when you're in the moment of like, oh, I've got to like dive into the water because I have to escape the boulder, or
And I may as well dredge and pick up some treasure while
right,
I'm at
and
it.
you're just making crazy decisions because you're not thinking too hard about it and you're having a good time. It's a great game.
Well,
Easily a 7.
And if the people you're playing against are doing really well, you're like, okay, then at this point I got to go balls to the wall. I got to take the risk, and at
Yeah,
that
no
point, you're
guts, no
just ahead of
glory.
that.
Yeah.
You're just
And
ahead of that boulder.
It is a really easy game to play,
Mhm.
Especially when you're not too worried about optimizing it, right? As a family game, if you just want to like put it on the table and run whoever through it, people are going to have a good time because it's easy to learn, easy to play, and you go fast.
I played this during the pandemic, 2020, right? In March, and so I last time I played this was 4 years ago. Wow. So when was lockdown? Lockdown was March 13th. Yeah, March 13th is when we got sent home from work, 2020, right? Yeah, I played this March 16th, 2020. So that was the following Monday we got together and played this, and that's when it came to an end.
Chris, what's your number?
No, I think Sam hit the nail on the head with, we're 4 experienced gamers and we kind of metagamed it a little bit. But I love bringing this out with people that they ask, like, well, what kind of games do you play? Monopoly, Stratego, things like that. And it's like, no, and you bring this out, this kind of blows their mind. I mean, this is a great...
It's so off
It's a
kilter
good-
from what they're used to.
It's an experience.
It's not a roll and move. It's like all of a sudden they get invested in their
Yeah.
character.
But it is a roll and
right,
Yeah.
but you
yeah,
can.
in a whole different way.
But no, it's almost more of an experience
Yes.
than like a game.
It's the next step up from roll and move to where people that don't play games regularly can understand what's going on and have a
Right,
good
because
time.
you can
Mhm.
look at it. You have, okay, these are the spaces. There's my guy. There's the boulder. Okay, I can see I have to get to the exit.
And we've all seen the movie, so we all understand what looting means. I mean, you go in, you grab. It's essentially a shopping spree. You go in, you grab what you can, and you get out before the sale is over.
Supermarket sweep.
Yeah, so this is a game I do enjoy playing it with you guys, but it's also, I think I'd rather play it with people that are new to board gaming or haven't seen anything like this. They play Monopoly, Risk, or categories and different stuff. This kind of just blows their minds, open up a whole new world, and they want to play it again. And I love that feeling when I'm showing people how to play games. I'm going to give it a solid 7, and we'll move on.
Since I did survive one of the games,
Okay.
At least I didn't fry the second time.
I've probably played close to 50 or 60 games of the Adventurers. Maybe not all the way through, and maybe not playing, but guiding. Like I said, the year that this came out, this was my game. I played this, and I ran Thunderstone tournaments. So between those 2 games, it's really all I did at Gen Con for 4 days. And I still enjoy bringing this out from time to time. As Chris said, we're experienced gamers. I really feel like 1 session a year is about right for this.
Yeah.
As Sam said, it's not something I would want to play next week. If somebody said, what about the Adventurers? I'd be like, what about something else? Or, oh my God, I got something going on. Sorry. But, that once a year experience, it allows you to forget the little details enough to where there are some, they're not surprises, but the game can surprise you in ways. So for that,
It's a fresh experience.
it's a fresher experience, yes. For that, I'll give it a 7 just because even past all that, it's just a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
so thematic and it's so evocative of just, I grew up watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was like
Yeah, I mean, we bought a
just
VCR
the first
because
15
of it.
minutes of the, just the temple part. That's
Yeah.
like we used to build temple runs in our house and we'd roll like a ball of pillows down the stairway like at each other. Like that was stuff that we used to do as kids.
So this is there's a few games in my life that have had these moments of narrative, these stories that like I can't forget. And there's a space on this board that I had never realized until I was once playing with my daughter, and this was back when she was probably 12 or 13 years old when it first came out, where she was on her way out, but I jumped in the water and she realized I probably had more points than her. So she was on her way out, but she was going to lose. and she went across the bridge backwards. She essentially doubled back behind the rock to get into the water, to swim through the water, to get more points, to get out before the rock got to her and get out of the dungeon so that she could actually still beat me. And when she went across that bridge backward, I'm like, are you insane?
How did that work out?
Oh, she died. But that's okay. That's okay. That was not the point, though. She had to throw the big dice to see what she could do. And the thing I had never realized is there are not 2 spots that get you into the river. There are 3. She could turn the corner from the spot next to the bridge, dive straight into the water, and she darn near got out. And she would have beaten me on points, but she just did not have enough time to get enough stuff she needed. But that's one of those stories. And you know, another one I remember is this little homemade game that a guy did called Sucking Vacuum that you and I used to play, Chris, on a regular basis. And there are these storylines that I remember that are, you know, I'm going to be, you know, drowning on my dentures when I'm 80 years old, and I'm going to be thinking of games. And this is one of those games that has that moment.
That's only 20 years from now, John.
It's getting close. You're right. So, from that perspective, this gets a real high 7 for me, just because I think there's the potential for these really big, sort of larger than life plays to happen. And tonight, I crashed and burned. In fact, I didn't even make it halfway around the map either time, so it wasn't the best plays. And I there are some games that either they do very poorly or they just way outshine where they're normally going to be. And this is one of those games where you can just have a crazy moment where somebody's busting out the end of that door with the rock right behind them, and you know, they're one step away. And that makes for fun gaming.
It leads to these magical moments.
Yeah.
It's all about
stuff that you remember, stuff that you like. You know, I used to joke about HeroScape. You know, 50 years from now, you're going to be on the golf course and you're going to be talking about that game of HeroScape you played with your buddy when you were 17 years old. And this is the kind of game that can give that kind of experience.
All right, any parting thoughts?
I think this game is fine.
This game is fun.
No guts, no glory.